Hi guys, Bor here with my Warlock damage over time build guide for Last Epoch. So this is my first build guide I'm dropping on this channel. I have played Last Epoch for quite a while now, played few builds. I usually focus on playing in hardcore and this guide will focus on hardcore character. I am currently level 80 in hardcore new release cycle, and I have to say this may be one of the most broken builds I witness in the game. It's not in the terms of damage, it's more in the terms of survivability. So let me actually show you what I'm talking about. Yes, you see it right. We get easily to 20k ward. Yes, it's decaying really fast, but here's the thing. I could just recast this right now and get the ward again. The cooldown on the combo is very short, so you can maintain really high wards and just blast through anything in the game. So how does it work? In the Profane Veil, there is no vampiric pool that lets you consume minions and gain 4% of the maximum HP as a ward. It may not sound that great. I tried some testing on normal minions, but then I found out that Bone Curse can be specced into Bone Prison on cast. We can further reduce the cooldown reduction, and we have those pillars. There will be 12 pillars you will summon. And then we can scale the max HP of each pillar. The base one is 500 and we add 2.k on top of that. There is also slightly level scaling and intelligence scaling, so probably one of the pillars will have 3.5k HP or a bit more. So if you go back here, you can see that right now I'm speccing to consumption of 6 minions. We could drop 2 more points here, consume 4 more minions, so instead of getting 20k ward, I will be getting 30k ward. But that's not the end of the story here. The only way of scaling minion health right now is through this helmet. Increase minion health, I have almost 200 increase. In the planner I have, we should have twice as much, but you could go even more. So 450 is like reasonable amount, but you can get that minion health on almost any prefix, on almost every item, and you can get absurd level of ward. So if I would have the build I have in the planner right now, my ward will be basically doubled when I do the combo. So that would be 40k. If I would actually spec 2 more points, we would reach 50-60k ward by the cast. Alright, but that's one of the mechanics. Let me show you guys how this build actually will feel in the gameplay, so you guys can judge if it's something you would enjoy. So first thing is, we can go really fast. The clear speed is very nice. The main damage dealer here is Chthonic Fissure, and we scale Torment damage. Then the secondary damage dealer is the Spirit Plague. In this scenario I'm also using it to gain some ward, and it also increases the damage over time. Now, when situation requires that, I cast Bone Curse and curse enemies with Mark for that. That gives us another damage multiplier, and then I can actually use my Profane Veil to get insane ward and further increase the damage I'm dealing. And then we use Transplant to move very fast on the map. So one thing to add here, I'm playing in a solo account fount, and my gear is far from ideal. So I still don't have my unique helmet, the Barbed helmet, that will give me ward per second. I don't have Ghostmaker or Marinas or any better wand. I'm still using the Woven Flesh to make myself immune to critical strikes. And other than that, my maximum necrotic resistance is only 340. More about this in a second. I don't have anything insane on my idols either. We have some extra armor for Bone Curse. You can see my armor is pretty decent at that point, but in the final build it should be double. So yeah, overall the items I'm using are not crazy, and we still can pretty decently clear everything in the game. It will just get better and better the more streamlined items we find. So let's switch to the planner and I will talk about everything in this build, explaining all the nuances and the reasoning why I took some notes, and maybe give you another options if you want to go a different route. Alright, so we are in the planner here. Let me go first through the skills. As I mentioned, the main damage dealer in our case is gonna be Chthonic Fissure. The main way of scaling damage and what makes Chthonic Fissure and Torment damage so amazing is this node, the Twisted Waves. In the final build, we'll have something around 900% necrotic resistance on this build, which means that our damage multiplier for this build gonna be 1.2k at minimum. It all depends how much necrotic resistance you're actually gonna get. This is one of the more insane damage multiplier we can achieve in this game. But this doesn't stop there, because there are other ways to get more multipliers in the Chthonic Fissure. So one of them is this one. You get more damage per critical strike multiplier. This is something I will not be focusing to the extreme, but for 1 point, because we path here anyway, it's something you may always take. This will open up your choices for items. That crit multi actually will be something worthwhile. Our clear damage is good, but we're probably gonna lack a little bit on rare enemies and bosses, so that's why I'm taking this. As you can see, that will be 48% more damage, because we have so many curses that our opponents will almost always be cursed. Now, another very important thing to increase our damage is gonna be necrotic resistance shredding. You can only go to 10 stacks of this, each stack shred resistance by 5. It will be only 2% on bosses, so not as great, but it's always 20 more multi, and all of your damage gonna be necrotic anyway. So that's pretty nice utility we can get. Now the other way you can scale is through this node. It only scales the torment damage, it's another multi, but you need to find a way to ignite, poison or bleed your enemies, which shouldn't be actually that hard. There are a few ways you can achieve this, including some idols, weapons, or using Spirit Plague as a poison trigger. Right now I'm experimenting with Spirit Frequency, so we have more hits, and while more hits is more important, you're gonna see on the Spirit Plague in a second. And I think in the final build, when mana will not be a problem, second Fissure will just double the amount of hits through the spirits you will have, so probably worthwhile to have. Don't spec into this early or mana will be really biting your ass. So that's about the Chthonic Fissure. Let's talk about Spirit Plague and how I spec the way I spec. So we take this node for extra global increased damage. And to make sure we have those stacks, there are two ways you can actually achieve this, and I'm just experimenting with the different one, and because this is ward build, I also get some ward. So the usual way of getting maximum stacks is taking 2 points in this node that increase your duration, and then putting 3 points into this node that actually gonna increase the duration and give you 60% cast speed for your Spirit Plague. The one benefit of actually going this way, you can, as I mentioned, when you need poison, you can just put 1 point into this one and you're gonna poison your enemies when you Spirit Plague. So the Torment will benefit from that more damage multiplier I was talking about. Now, we're taking, of course, the more damage multi and another one. Then we actually get the defensive option with Frailty. Frailty, if you don't know what it does, it reduces the damage taken by 6%, and you can have 3 stacks on your opponent. Very strong stat, especially in hardcore. And here's the main damage amplifier for us. This build is stacking Intelligence, and for each point of Intelligence we are getting 1 spell necrotic damage. Now, the thing I'm experimenting with second way of spreading is actually taking 3 points into this node. Every time your opponent is hit, you have 30% chance to spread the Spirit Plague. We get the hits through the spirits from Chthonic Fissure. And because I'm trying this, I'm also trying this one. It doesn't give you crazy amounts of ward. It should give you like 200-300 ward per cast of Chthonic Fissure. And that's when I'm talking about one enemy. If we go into the Chthonic Fissure again, you can see there is this node. When enemy dies, it has a chance to release the spirit again. We actually go on the Spirit Frequency also, which increase, I think the basic Fissure casts 13 spirits or something like that. I think with 2 points in this node, I was getting 17 casts. And then we can actually get second Fissure that will double the number of hits. And with spreading the Spirit Plague means that we'll have multiple enemies we can hit, so the ward gain should be much more. This is probably something I could skip, because the consumption of minions is insanely strong right now, but I feel it's nice to have early before you actually find very good gear to sustain your ward. Alright, let's go to the Profane Veil. So, as you can see, we go 5 points for minion consumption for insane ward, we had some duration here. I'm putting this way to get extra curse. In this version, I went with 5 points here, and we're probably gonna use dagger, and that gonna give us 30% more movement speed when we are in the Veil. And I feel like this is something we probably could easily drop here. And what I'm using right now is I respect everything here, and I did grab those 3. So first one, this actually creates a secondary area. It forced me to spend more mana on the Veil, which is a drawback if you're struggling with mana. But we get free Bone Curse cast on enter and exit of the Veil, and that will also cast on this secondary Veil area. Another thing we probably could get here is pump 3 points into this node. If you're using Wandering Spirits, this node is very strong. But because this is giving us so much ward when we enter the Veil and instantly consume minions, this is just something we don't really need right now. If this will get nerfed at one point, this will be definitely much stronger node to take. And of course the main thing about the Veil is this more damage multiplier. It's global damage multiplier. And it's pretty strong. It buffs our Torment damage, it buffs our Spirit Plague damage, it also buffs the Bone Curse we're gonna cast. So it's pretty good. And you probably need at least 2 points, maybe 3 if you really want to reduce the cooldown on the Spirit Veil. So basically how it will work, when you exit the Veil, you want to spam your Spirit Plague a few times to reduce this cooldown a bit further. Now when it comes to Bone Curse, I explain you why this is the main reason we're using Bone Curse, but the utility doesn't end there. So when we cast Bone Curse on our enemies, we curse them with Mark for Death. So yeah, first thing is additional curse, and secondly it's minus 25% to all resistance. So this is another damage multiplier basically. Very strong and very nice synergy so far. I increased this a bit and also I switch it to Necrotic. So how the Bone Curse works is when you curse enemy with it, when it gets hit, you're actually gonna deal the Bone Curse damage to it. And because it's Necrotic, it's gonna scale, and we get our hits through the Chthonic Fissure Spirits. So it's amplifying our damage by quite a bit. The way I spec here right now is I went for the Bone Armor chance. So the tooltip here is kinda misleading. It only shows you that you get 10 less damage taken. As you can see, and even in the description here, it says that it gives you armor. And when I was testing this, I actually did notice that my armor is increasing. But even if you don't get extra armor, that 10% less damage taken is very serious damage reduction that is very nice to have. Now the thing is we're gonna have Bone Armor proccing also from the Transplant, so if you feel like you're tanky enough, you may definitely skip this one and spec like this. And the main reason for doing that is you're gonna actually amplify the damage of your Burn Curse by 20% and then by additional 12%, but most importantly you're gonna get the kill threshold. Now, the nice benefit of having your kill threshold on Bone Curse is that you don't have to time it with Transplant. It's just gonna automatically happen when your target gonna get hit. There are, of course, other ways you can get extra hits. Bone Eruption is okay. You can actually explode enemies and that also will be hit. So either way, I would either go this way or grab extra survivability. And because I'm playing hardcore, I feel like this is worth more than this. And the last skill I have right now is the Transplant. And Transplant is skill you can maybe ditch later if you want more damage and spec into Wandering Spirits. But for now, I feel like the Transplant is pretty good. Main reason, you get easy way to gain haste and frenzy for 3-second duration. And the frenzy is extra cast speed, which is very nice for the Spirit Plague, especially if you didn't spec for that 60% increased cast speed on the tree there. Another utility of Transplant is it's like probably staple in every build. We get additional detonation on arrival, which is gonna deal damage, and then kill threshold of 15%. So easy to cool bosses that way. I also spec into free Bone Curse. Here's the one nice thing about this. When I cast the Bone Curse, it's gonna be on cooldown, but I can still proc it with the Transplant, and it will not consume any of the mana. And then I convert to Necrotic. Surprisingly, Transplant deals a lot of damage. It has 50 base and I mostly scale through spell or necrotic damage, so it's nice additional bonus there. And then we have Fear on Departure and on the Arrival. So jumping into the packs, it's not as that scary. We have few seconds to react before monsters gonna go ham on you. And then we go, of course, for the Bone Curse, the usual traveling, cast speed cooldown reduction, health cost reduction. And then we get this Bone Armor effect here for 12 less damage taken and 300 armor. And because I have 2 extra points, 2 points went into increased duration. Now I was experimenting with the minions, but the HP on those minions is terrible, so totally not worth it. And another one I'm thinking about checking is actually this note. So that extra damage multiplier here is very nice, but also the ward gain versus Spirit Plague. So we can put 5 points here, so that will be 40 points per one enemy. And if we charge into pack, we should get maybe some ward. Maybe in the end, not really that worth it. I decided I will not test it right now, so we're just going with extra duration here and extra fear. And that will be all about the skills. I think I explained everything. Now let's talk about the passives. So when you start in the hardcore, you definitely go those two nodes. This for extra damage early and this for extra survivability. That little armor early is gonna be insane damage reduction for your character. So why this over this? This gives you only 6% increase and this gives you 4% increase. Each point of intelligence will give you 4% increased damage and also gives you necrotic resistance you're gonna need in Act 4 forward. So now when you start early, you won't probably go this way, drop some vitality for extra HP, and then increase minion health. You will not be able to benefit from this extra minion health for a while, because you have to spend 35 points in the Warlock tree before you unlock the Veil. But early, when you don't have extra minion health, this node will be very, very good for you. Later you can safely remove points from this, you should have enough ward and don't care about HP anymore. And you can get extra ward retention, necrotic resistance and poison resistance. Both stats good, especially the necrotic resistance. So right now you guys saw only one way of benefiting of our necrotic resistance, but more to come on the Warlock skill tree. Let's go with the Leech here first. So 10 points here for int and increased mana regen. This build actually is becoming very mana hungry when you go fast. If you go slower, it's manageable, but you really wanna go fast, so you're gonna need that extra mana. And those are 2 points here, they were like leftover points, so I just drop it for extra necrotic damage. When you level up this character in hardcore, you're gonna rely on your HP a lot. So grab anything that gives you HP, that means flat health and vitality, but also the spell leech gonna be insanely good. So you may start putting few points into this one to make sure your character not gonna get destroyed by some nasty monsters. Later you will definitely respect from this. Now I have 2 points in leech here, which are completely optional. You can remove this later when you're gonna have your ward going. I keep it here just so when I transplant I get my health back, so I don't see the health spiking at all. But those points you can put it anywhere you want. You can drop it here. One of the good spot could be actually get more mana regen if that's a problem for you, or maybe get extra int here. Alright, so when you start, you probably want to start with this node. Extra health and increased damage is very nice, but later when you reach the ward, you gonna respect from that. Then we definitely want the spell damage for curses. To solve our mana problems, we want to grab this at one point. I don't think you're gonna need this early, but the moment you notice that your mana is a problem, getting 1 mana per int, which you should have around 100 int in the final build, that's not gonna help you getting that mana back, but you have bigger headroom when you actually go fast. Now we saw the note on the Profane Veil that gives us extra ward per resistance. Here is the same situation, but we get the ward per intelligence. So that intelligence scaling is more worthwhile for us. The main thing actually about intelligence is it gives us ward retention, which we want as much as possible in this build. To have as much stable ward as we can, but also to reduce the decay of the insane ward we're getting. Now, one of the main defensive layer, we get some armor, but also with 5 points, we get 3% more armor per curse on target. So that's why we actually try to find as many ways to curse our enemies as we can. This is also very good damage multi, so we just get extra while using the Profane Veil. The less damage taken while channeling, while it doesn't sound great, it's global less damage taken. I think I forgot to show you there when talking about skills. So this is very nice note here. The damage reduction while in the Veil also applies to damage over time. You're completely immune to hit damage while in the Profane Veil, but damage over time could shred you. This prevents this, because in the final build we should have around 63 to 66% damage reduction from armor, so that will nullify the damage over time a lot. And on top of that we get that extra 24 less damage taken. Now the strong note here is ward per second and also less damage taken per curse on target. Again, we will have 5-6 curses in this build, so another way to reduce the damage taken. Speaking about the defensive options here, another one with 5 points, we can get 100% chance on hit to inflict withering on our enemy. As you can see, we're gonna take 8% less damage taken from withered, but also it will scale our damage. For each withering on enemy, they take 10% increased curse damage. This is damage multiplayer, because it is calculated on the side of the monster, and it has 20 stacks. So you're not gonna be able to inflict 20 stacks for sure, it's only 3-second duration, but you're probably gonna get like 3 or maybe 4 stacks of it after you cast the Chthonic Fissure. So not too shabby at all. Now, of course, Intelligence, very good. Vitality, while it might not sound that great in the ward stacking build, with the recent changes, it also gives you poison resistance and 1 necrotic resistance per 1 vitality. So we're just getting extra 10 necrotic resistance that way. Either way, just for the intelligence, pretty good note. Now, because I took the note for critical multi, scaling Torment on the Chthonic Fissure, I'm talking about the Grimtide node here, and because we have spare points, I just took 40% critical multiplayer, so we scale our Torment damage even further. Now, there are a few ways you can get critical strike multi on your gear. There's actually a lot of places where you can get it. For instance, early before you get unique weapon, you can actually get crit multi on your wand or the dagger. There is also 40% crit multi blessing you can get from the Black Sun Monolith. You probably won't necessarily scale this to extreme, but if you do, it's definitely gonna increase your damage by a lot. I'm just having this because we have extra spare points here. Another very good note here, haste chance on kill. This note is one of the reasons why you may think about dropping Transplant if you really want, and go Wandering Spirits, for instance. It also globally boosts haste effect on you. So as I mentioned, haste, instead of giving you 30% increased movement speed, gonna give you 45%. Not too bad. Also it works on when you're bossing, which is added benefit. And then the last thing, first we need to put 2 points in Encroaching Darkness. That is another curse we're gonna actually inflict on enemies. And then we get extra spell damage for curses. So more or less, this is the planner here. So before I go through the gear, let's talk about idols. So when it comes to idols, there are actually few very good ones that are definitely contenders to what I picked there. So let's start with the Adorned one. So if the minion strategy gonna get nerfed, you can start focusing on this one, ward per second during Profane Veil. You can actually have 4 of those idols in your build. And then the second one, you can get Fear, you can get your way of poisoning, but there is also ward retention, which is very nice affix, and of course poison resistance if you want to cap with one of those. The other very good one, I would assume most of people probably want to go that route. There is increased duration for Profane Veil on Ornate Idol, and as a secondary, you can get cooldown recovery with Transplant, Necrotic resistance, which is insanely strong, and probably that should be your main aim here. And there is also ward on kill, so maybe you can get a decent one dropping. But what I did here, I went for the 3x1 one, and you can see my choice was Spell Curse damage. I have a lot of flat spell damage added to my Spirit Plague already, but we may as well add more here. Now, if you don't like this one, you can get Armor Grant by Bone Armor, which is also gonna be very strong. There is Damped on hit on this one also. Chance to poison if it is something that you're missing. Definitely the spell and the Bone Armor are the strongest one. But as you can see, there are a few variations. Even this damage over time will not be terrible if it actually drop. Now, when it comes to suffix on this one, my choice here is Necrotic resistance, but you can also cap your physical resistance or poison resistance with this one. And there is ward gained on kill, which is also not terrible. Now, because we can use 4 of those here, that means we can put 2 large immortal idols. And probably the best affixes on this one is chance to chill on necrotic hit, which we're gonna be doing with Chthonic Fissure, and we have ward retention. There are actually other affixes you can get here. Chance to fear on hit also is decent one. You can get elemental resistance, of course. And if you will be playing low life build, which I don't think you need necessarily to do in this variant of the build, there is also health here, and the same for the prefix. So with that leaves us with two small ones. So first one is to cap the void resistance, and the second is to cap physical resistance. And the reason why we need this is my blessings. I capping void resistance through the blessing on the Blackstone timeline. As I mentioned before, you can get crit multi here that goes to 40%. I decide to go defensive. I think the damage will be good enough. Now for the another one, ending the storm, we're going for the ward per second. On the Reign of Dragons, necrotic resistance, which gonna scale our damage and defense here. And then, of course, we go the staple here, both armor, the Age of Winter and the Spirits of Fire. Now, the reason why the necrotic resistance stacking, you can see in the planner we have 916. It's gonna be insane, even without that minion consumption, is because of the Bone Clamon Barbed Helmet. So, as you can see, the last entry here, the last affix, is 1 ward per second per 3 uncapped necrotic resistance. So yeah, not only we get insane damage on Torment, we also get insane ward regeneration. So in this planner, my ward regen is 504, we have 666 retention and a lot of ward decay threshold. If you put this in the Tank Lab planner, what you're gonna see is over 6k stable ward, which is not that bad for any build out there. Now, when it comes to other items here, the Ghostmaker is very synergistic with this build for a few reasons. First, we get insane spell damage. This is the highest spell damage we can get. Secondly, we get the ward on kill, and because we're gonna kill a lot and very fast, the ward increase is gonna be very nice. And then as a secondary thing, because of the consumption of minions, we'll actually be consuming those raids here, which may turn into the drawback. I didn't drop the dagger yet, so I was not able to test it. Sadly, the HP compared to the bone wall is much lower, so hopefully it will not interfere with our combo. If that will be the case, then we can easily switch to Marina's Lost Soul, which is a unique wand. It also gives us very decent spell necrotic damage, and it further boosts the necrotic damage we're dealing. And we really don't care about reduce HP in this case, because we're fully stacking the ward. Of course, before that, we're just gonna use a normal wand with highest possible spell damage. And as you can see, for the affixes I have selected, those are for dagger. Don't expect to get 4 LP drop Ghostmaker. The best you're probably gonna see is 1 LP, and if you're very lucky, 2 LP. And in that case, of course, you want to get any of the damage mods moved onto the weapon. Same for the Bone Clamor Barbute. As you can see, I have here int, spell curse damage, then increase armor and necrotic resistance. So those are 4 affixes you should be looking for before finding this helmet. Again, it's the same story as with the Bone Maker. 1 LP, maybe 2 LP if you're very lucky. In that case, probably necrotic resistance is what you're looking first, and then it's a toss-up between you want to deal more damage with spell curse damage or actually increase armor. Both of those will be very good. Intelligence also is not the end of the world in that case, because we have some extra scaling for that stat too in the build. Now when it comes for the base of the helmet, the one you're looking for is probably Necropolis Helmet, but if you want to deal more damage, the Raven Crown also gonna be very nice. As you can see, we have both of those very nice armor. This is giving us ward on kill, which is very nice stat on this fast clearing build, and ward decay threshold. This one extra damage if you're suffering with this one. But in the end, this is the unique you're looking for. Now, when it comes to amulet, standard one, we go the bone amulet, because easy to cap physical rest, but also it gives us necrotic rest. That is very important for the build. And then we get 2 increased damage on prefix, necrotic resistance, and then elemental resistance in this case. It's gonna be the same actually story for the rings, necrotic and elemental resistance there. The rings we're looking for is Ivory Ring. It synergizes the best in this build. Necrotic Res and Ward Decay Threshold, very good stats. And when it comes to rings, of course we go for the int stacking, but also I feel like this is the only spot where increased minion health is not wasted slot. So we can get this on both of the rings, and also increased minion health we can get on the belt. In that case, it competes with very slightly damage increase modifiers, so I think those are three best spots for that one. So when it comes to belt, we go with the armor one, of course, then increase necrotic damage. As usual, necrotic resistance and increase cooldown recovery is very important in this one. Speaking about that, also we want to increase cooldown recovery on boots. Those are two spots for that affix to show, and you should definitely aim for that. The reason is, it will reduce the cooldown reduction for Bone Curse and for the Profane Veil, meaning you will be able to cast them more often and benefit from the synergy with minion consumption and extra damage on top of that. Also, it will drop the transplant cooldown, so we can go even faster. When it comes to the base of the boots, I have chosen here the ones that gives you reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. You can go for the other one that gives you increased haste effect on you, another 50%, and they give you a little less armor, the same increased movement speed. So this is a very solid contender if you're looking for boots. The reason why I took the one that gives you reduced damage from critical strikes is because with this we can cap with only 2 affixes on the gear. So as you can see, I also went for the boots with the same affix. It's actually hybrid affix, gives you armor and reduced damage taken from critical strikes. And then other than that, increased movement speed and intelligence. Now, the second place, when we get the reduced bonus damage taken from crits and going to over 100% that way, which means we are immune for critical strike damage completely. Our gloves, we get extra armor with this one. Of course, we go for necrotic resistance as a suffix, and then intelligence. Now, I took strength here. There are other options you can take. You can take increase necrotic damage, spell damage, or cast speed. The thing with the strength here is the 1 point of strength gives us 4% increased armor. So to show you how impactful this is, right now I have 66% armor mitigation, and after I remove that strength we drop 3%. So it's your call if it's worth it. In my opinion it is, so that's why it's there. Now, if you can go with experimental affixes, the glow is gonna be probably the spot where you look for them. And there are a few that are pretty good. So this one is very nice. Armor mitigation also applies to damage over time. I explained that before. The ward on kill also is very nice. It also gives you ward decay threshold. And the ward per missing health. If you want to go low life at one point, this is one of the experimental affixes that could work very well for your build. But because getting item with good experimental affix is gonna be very hard, this is not something I'm including in this build. You can get extra haste chance on boots and some stuff on the belt. So if you find very good item with one of those, you can always seal them and try to craft similar to what I have here in the planner. So when it comes to items I didn't talk about, let's talk about the chest piece here. So the base I chose here is the one that gives us armor and ward decay threshold and ward gain on kill. I think that should be the very good one. For the prefix, int stacking of course, and then we probably want the levels to Chthonic Fissure, because there are a lot of nodes there we want to take. And then again, increase armor, very strong, and then necrotic resistance to buff synergies in our build even more. And I think the last one I haven't mentioned here is Relic. So I chose the poison resistance one with ward per second. Pretty good stuff with what we were talking about. Again, we go for int, and this is the very important one. This is probably the most important one to get. Tier 7 levels of Profane Veil, so we can get +4 here. Now, another item that could actually be very good in this spot is, of course, the Twisted Heart of Ukeiros. It gives you levels to necrotic spell skills, +1 to every single skill you have right now. It also gives you strength, which is more armor. We get some cast speed. Another relic that is probably worth considering here will be the Grimoire of Necrotic Elixirs. The reason why, when you use potion, you're gonna get 30 to 40 spell damage for 4 seconds. So pretty decent buff, and you're also gonna get some damage reduction. Probably worth if you get it like maybe 2 LP, 3 LP. As you can see, the chances are not that terrible. 2 LP should be quite common. So this could be very nice mid-end game relic if you find one. If not, use this one I'm showing you here. And I didn't talk about the suffixes here. Elemental resistance to cap our cold and lightning, and of course necrotic resistance for the stacking. But I think I didn't talk about offhand here, so we go for opulent focus here. As you can see, implicit, int, word per second, word retention, very good for what we are trying to achieve here. Then we go increase spell damage, increase necrotic damage. If you find minion health here on the prefix, also probably very good choice. You can find critical strike multiplayer also. And maybe if you feel like extra cast speed. Now when it comes to our suffixes, word per second and necrotic resistance, I feel like the ones that you should be looking for on this one. And I think this is basically all when it comes to this build. It's probably a very long video here, so I really appreciate you watching to this point. And I hope you're gonna enjoy this build. And thanks for watching, and I'm gonna catch you on the next one.